Brooke Bishop, welcome to the Big Fat Life podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing great. Let's start here. You have 8 children, 4 of them
Yeah.
biological, which means that a good portion of the last few years you've been pregnant.
Yeah.
And now you've come all the way to losing a lot of weight. Let's talk about being a mom for a second, because it seems like that, that's an intense thing to have that many children and raise them and take care of a home. What's all this like for you?
Very busy.
I bet.
Very busy. Yeah. Not a whole lot of time for like me. It's all about sports and kids. We've got little babies that, 2 of them, they're like a year and something apart in age.
Mhm.
So, they keep me busy all the time.
Yeah, and you mentioned something very important there for me is not a lot of me time, not a lot of me time. And when it comes to taking care of ourselves, being healthy, doing the necessary things to be at a healthy weight, that requires all the me time,
Yeah.
because no one's doing it for you, right? No one's going to no one can lose weight for you. And to find that time to make yourself a priority, was that difficult for you?
Yes.
How did you
Yeah.
do it? How did you get to that
Well,
point?
I think it became necessary for me to start finding time for me because I knew it was going to benefit my kids. I needed to take some time for me and I needed to heal myself and my body. And physically, I was in such a bad state when, before I started all this, I couldn't even hardly hold my own baby to pick him up, put him down because I was in pain and I was overweight. So it became necessary. Like I had to take time to figure out how, and it wasn't even like time. It was just, I had to make sure that I was doing something to nourish myself because that was the only way I was going to be able to give back to the rest of my family.
Right. And you're a young woman still. So when you're going through you're a mom, but you're also a young woman and you're feeling how you're feeling,
Mhm.
you shouldn't be feeling like you're 80, 90 years
Yeah.
old, and you
Yeah.
start to feel like I can't do things with my body like I should. I can't be active with my children. It hurts to hold and hold my
Mhm.
children, do cook food, take care of a home, be my, all these things start working
Mhm.
against you. Some people, that's a hard thing mentally to get over as well, because when
Yeah.
you're feeling that terrible, even if you know the answers, taking those necessary steps can be really hard because we're feeling mentally defeated to some degree.
Yes.
And with you, you mentioned that you had to do this. Now, one thing that you mentioned to me prior to this interview was that following your last pregnancy, you were diagnosed as diabetic. Now,
Yes.
I'm assuming that's type 2 diabetic, right?
Yes.
Because you're,
Mhm.
you had gained weight to the point where it was becoming a problem. How did you take that news? Why did it scare you? And take us through making the steps to make a change.
Yeah. So, I was feeling terrible all the time. I was so tired. And like I said, physically, I was in pain and the exhaustion was really bad. And I knew that things were off. And what actually happened was I was making dinner in the kitchen and my 9-year-old at the time was sitting behind me. And I don't know if I was making dinner or doing dishes or what, but all of a sudden I woke up and she was standing over top of me. So I had passed out and like had no clue what had nothing. I like nothing. So I went to the doctor. I think it was like the next day. I finally went in and then they had checked. And so my blood sugars were just out of control. And I think I had just gotten done eating is what it was. And I was cleaning up. So yeah, my blood sugars were out of control. And my mom is a diabetic and her diabetes scares me. Like her sugars can get up into like the 400s.
Wow.
On a regular basis, and I've seen the stuff that she's gone through, and I don't personally take medication for anything. So the thought of being a diabetic and having to take insulin and do all of this stuff was, I don't want to say not an option because obviously, I wanted to heal myself with food. So that was when I first started looking into like whole foods and keto and all the things, and something I'm putting in me isn't doing me any good health wise, not just weight, but health wise. So a friend of mine, she had lost like 50 pounds doing keto, and I was watching her and kind of watching her stories and stuff. And she's someone I grew up with. I love food. I'm a foodie. And so is she. So it was kind of like interesting. I kind of was thinking like, maybe this is something I might want to try. But didn't really like put too much thought into doing it. Like I didn't put forth any effort into it.
Well, because in a lot of diets, right? Like, especially if you're someone who identifies as a foodie, you know, you like to try new and interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, well, now I'm going to have to restrict myself, and eating, which is something I enjoy to do, is going to be boring. So that gets in the back of your mind. But with keto, you felt like there was a way to make it interesting and enjoyable and sustainable.
Yes, absolutely. And cooking is kind of like my therapy. Like my husband and I, we cook together. It's like dinner time in this house is always an experience. We play music and we cook food. It's something that we do together because we don't have a lot of me time or adult time. Cooking food was the one way I could start putting, you know, a little effort into myself and still have like the family time and do all the things, and just to kind of, but it was more or less like at this point in time trying to eat good foods, not necessarily keto yet, because I wanted to be healthy.
Right.
I didn't want to be sick, you know. And
yeah, no, I get that. Now, when you're diagnosed as diabetic, I'm sure right away they start talking to you about insulin and the things you're going to need to do to bring your sugars down. Did you avoid that altogether? Were you that determined and convinced that you could fix this on your own?
Yes, 100%.
I mean, that's kind of scary because there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that, you know, blood sugars are out of control. I know how bad it can get, you know, if you just read a little bit about it, a diabetic coma, like if you get high enough of your sugars. You didn't think it was a risk to just say, I'm going to do this on my own? Because that's a big leap of faith.
Yeah, no, I 100% believe that food is put here for our benefit, which is why it's crazy to me sometimes that I let it get so out of control as far as like what I was eating, because I believe with 100% certainty that, you know, we can heal our bodies with food. And so like my mom being a diabetic, also she works in the medical field, was like, you know, you're insane. You can't do this. There's no way. Like you know, you're diagnosed diabetes, like you're a diabetic, like it is what it is. And now you got to take medicine and this is how it is for the rest of your life. And I refuse to accept that. And
I mean this in the kindest way. That is a lot of stubbornness. You have to
yeah.
be. You have to be.
I'm very stubborn. Yes.
Because it is like when you're being told by professionals in the medical field, like, this is your new life. This is how you're going to stay alive. You also have children. You have a husband.
Yeah.
I would think that even if you're that determined, there's something in the back of your mind that's like, I hope this works, because if it doesn't, like, what am I doing? Right. Like, were you ever scared about that?
Not really scared, but I think that's one thing that does fuel me is if this doesn't work, I'm going to figure out what does. And I'm going to keep tweaking things, even to like right now, like in this moment, like I've lost the weight, but I still tweak things that I eat and I don't, to still continue to try to make things better. Or like if I have like a reaction to something, I'm always trying to figure things out. So it just gives me more determination. And every person that told me I couldn't do it gave me more fuel to be like, watch me, I'm going to do this. And I needed to do it for myself and for my kids, because they're watching me and they're watching what I eat. And I want to be an example to them. And so it was like, I got to figure it out. I believe, and I have to show everybody that I was right.
Right. So you did research, you were looking at different keto recipes.
Yes.
So you mentioned using, incorporating the necessary me time with your family time because you like to cook and that was your therapy. So does that mean you were cooking keto-esque meals for your family as well?
Yes. Yes.
How did they adapt to that? Did they like that? Were they kind of like, this is not working for me, or everyone on board?
So in the beginning, and even still now, it'd be like, well, we're going to make like spaghetti and meatballs. So I'm going to make spaghetti meatballs, and I wouldn't eat the pasta, but maybe try a couple different kinds of healthier options for pasta for them to see what they did or didn't like. And the biggest challenge with this is my 14-year-old is autistic, and one of his issues is food, and he has sensory issues. So his diet is terrible. So we've tried, and we still try to continue to work with like his occupational therapist stuff to get him to try some of the keto foods to kind of try to help heal him. So it became one of those things where like, well, let's try this and see if he'll eat this, or see if they'll like this, or let's not tell them, because I never want to be restrictive. So it's like, well, we can't eat pizza, because of the crust, but I'm to this day on a mission to come up with a good pizza crust, and, to see it, like if they'll eat stuff. The babies will eat anything that we eat. It's the older ones.
Right.
And some things they like and some things they don't. And we just continue to try to make things, we don't want anyone to go without. So it's like, if the pasta is what you like, let's figure out how to come up with a replacement. So you still have it. It's just not the actual pasta,
Right.
And they like that.
So they have like some of the substitutes.
Yes.
Right. What are some of the substitutes that you've used for pasta?
So zucchini noodles is probably the one thing I use the most for pasta. Thankfully, the family's not big pasta eaters, but like mac and cheese, we do like the cauliflower mac and cheese. And not just pasta, but potatoes is a big one. So like we've used jicama, and we've used radishes. The new favorite thing is like, my husband used to make cheesy hash brown potatoes, and they're, more calories and carbs in one serving of that than what we would eat in a whole day. So we randomly just decided to try it with radishes, and everybody, even our non-keto family, loved it, because like you would never know you were eating a radish once it was all said and done. So
yeah, I've never even heard of using radish as a substitute for potato.
It's so good. It's so good.
That's interesting. Have you, now that you've been coming up with some of these things, do you share those things like with
Yes.
like on your Instagram and all that?
Yes.
All right. Well, at the end of this conversation, we'll make sure that people know where to find that. But in the meantime, I find it interesting, again, that you were this determined and convinced that you could do this. How long from when you started to change how you were going to cook and eat to when you started to notice a change? And I don't just mean physical. I mean, when you're considered diabetic in danger and actually seeing your sugar levels go down.
I would say within the first 14 to 30 days, there was an immediate difference, an immediate change. Physically, I could see, I was losing weight. But it was weird because all of a sudden, like my family kind of noticed before I did that I was getting around a little better. And I have problems with my sciatica. So it was like physical little things, like I was getting around better, or like my energies were better. I wasn't as tired as I had been. And I kept getting, the only thing I could say, the only way I can describe it is I was getting like tunnel vision. And it was just, I would get this weird feeling where like I didn't have peripheral vision, which apparently that was my sugars. And that was one of the biggest things. Like all of a sudden it just stopped. I didn't even know what was causing it. I thought maybe my vision was going back. And within the first couple of weeks, it's like, wait a minute, that hasn't happened anymore, and I didn't really experience much of the keto flu, but I did a lot of research. So it was like electrolytes. And honestly, I felt so terrible that I don't think that any kind of keto flu would have been worse than the way I was feeling when this started. So like I immediately started feeling better.
And now I'm thinking about, your doctor's telling you what you should be doing. You're doing this despite that, and you're starting to feel better and you're starting to lose the weight. Did you at any point go back to your doctors? Did they check your blood levels? What was their reaction to the fact that you were actually getting healthier?
Well, I went back, I was supposed to go back after 3 months. And I think I ended up going back after 6 months. I'll tell you, the one thing that made me nervous is I was the one thing that, you grow up hearing all this stuff about cholesterol, and the way that I was eating did make me a little nervous. And I was trying to figure out, like, is this going to be an issue? So I waited a little bit longer to go back to the doctor. But like when I went back, my A1C was like 4.5 after 6 months. and my cholesterol levels were great. Like everything, like my blood work came back perfect. The only thing that was a little off at this point in time was I was dehydrated. So like my electrolytes were lower than normal, which is when I started amping up more of like the Celtic salts and electrolytes and stuff like that. But when I went back to the doctor, he just couldn't even believe it. Like the weight loss in general scared him. He was like, we got to run some blood work. Something's not right, you know, and
something's not right. You've lost too much weight in a short amount of time. This
yeah.
can't be healthy. You're doing something wrong. And then they find out that, like, yeah, for anyone listening, and you could help me remember this, A1C gets critical when it's above 5 point something. I think it's 5.3.
Yeah. Well,
Something.
5.5 maybe, because mine was 6 when I was first diagnosed.
Right. Yeah.
So it was right there.
Yeah, there's a threshold, and yeah, it's something like that. And then if you're over that threshold, you get diagnosed diabetic.
Yeah.
And to get it yourself below that naturally there's a lot of controversy if that's even possible. People have obviously done it. I've heard other stories where they've done it, and you can say to yourself, I know it's possible because you've done it. Yeah. That's impressive. And then so now after that, it's just, well, your blood work's good, you're losing weight, I guess just come in for checkups and hopefully everything stays where it is. It's been how long now since you started this process?
So July 1st of 2020 was the first day that I was like, I'm going to eat this way. So like my daughter got married at the end of June, and between her wedding day at the end of June and July 1st, I went like deep into research. Like I have to do this. I have to do something. And that honestly was fueled by shame. You know, I was so embarrassed of the way that I looked at her wedding. I deleted the pictures from the wedding of me and her on my phone before I even left the venue. And by the next day, I was so full of shame that I had let myself get to that point. It was like, I gotta do this. My health is out of control, you know. And this was like the same week that I had been diagnosed diabetic. The week of her wedding. So it was just a lot of stuff. And so July 1st, I went in and just didn't look back. And I've played with carbs and net carbs and the stuff, but like really like when I went in between July 1st and Christmas Day, I ate under 20 total carbs every single day. No processed, prepackaged, nothing. Like 100% like meat and vegetables and cheese. I did eat cheese.
Wait, I'm sorry. So you mentioned net carbs. Does that mean 20 carbs in general? Like you're not even counting net carbs, just any carb, nothing below, like nothing above 20 grams a day. That's what you did.
That's what I did.
Do you now start doing the math on net carbs and like if it's hot, you know, because net carbs, as I understand it, in my experience has been, you know, you basically subtract the fiber.
Yeah.
Right. Do you do that now?
No. So now where I'm at now is I try to eat intuitively. And then if something goes wrong, like if I have a flare up on my face, like if my face breaks out, or, you know, maybe I'm a little achy for some reason, or my energy levels start to drop, I'll be like, maybe I should eat a little less dairy. Maybe I should, you know, I don't eat a lot of nuts in general. But if I start feeling like I'm reacting to something, then I'll really focus on it. But I don't really like right now, just for the sake of like helping other people, I'll track my food and post the things and the calories or whatever. I'm not as concerned now as I was then, as far as like total carbs versus net carbs. Like if I eat 30 total carbs in a day, that's like that's fine. But back then, I've never tested ketones or anything, but I could tell the difference between if I had like a little more total carbs, a little less, but I didn't really eat anything that would push me out of 20 total carbs in the beginning anyways. The only thing that would have is if it was like shredded cheese in a bag or like something like that.
Right, because they add like cornstarch or something in there, don't they? Or
yes, they do.
To keep it soft. When we're talking about, you know, 20 carbs, where are those carbs coming from? Does that matter for you? I mean, because you can have 20 carbs a day coming from wheat.
Right.
You could, if you want to keep it small. Is that possible? Is that what you did? Or did you try other sources of carbohydrates?
No, my only carbs come from vegetables. or I did cream cheese, like if something in cream cheese or like some type of a condiment or something like that. And I try to make my own. And that was a big game changer for me too, is making my own condiments, and not all of them. I still use like the G Hues and different things like that. And not so much in the beginning as much as I do now, but I was very specific about like what vegetables I would or wouldn't eat. You know, tomatoes are higher in carbs. I don't think tomatoes are bad for you, or carrots or corn. But I personally just chose at that point in time to not eat them, because the better I felt and the more weight I lost, the more like it fueled me. But once I got closer to my goal weight, I know there's been a lot of talk in the keto world about whether or not, you know, some people say like, is this an eating disorder? You're not eating vegetables. No, I don't think so. But I think like once you get to like a goal, if you have a goal, you do whatever you got to do to hit that goal. And then once you're at your goal, you can play around with other things, you know. But was I so strict that I didn't have like a shred of carrot and coleslaw? No. I mean, that's fine.
Right. And so, like you said, like certain vegetables you would stay away from because of their sugar content versus other vegetables that are lower on the glycemic index is what that's how I would look at it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like, you know, like, and the safe bet, and please jump in if I'm wrong here, but the safe bet that I've understood has always been, when it comes to vegetables, the greener, the better when it comes to like worrying about the sugars and the carbohydrates.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's a good way to go about it. When you're eating keto, there are a lot of people who have, myself included, and I think most people, when you start looking at the fat content, and like you said before, what you know about fat and cholesterol, what you're taught as you grew up, do you start to worry about what kind of fats? Does it matter to you the where the sources of fat are coming from, or is fat just fat?
No, I don't think that's just fat. The one thing for me is, I know like when I first started keto, within the first like couple weeks, one thing that I really caught on to by doing research, and not just like a keto influencer on Instagram, but doctors and all the stuff that I was looking at, the people that support keto, was not to eat all the fat. Mine was more like, I need to eat a lot of protein, you know, and some people think, the protein turns to sugar and all the stuff. And, so I did always do, and I have always pretty much done this whole time, higher protein, not really carnivore, but higher protein, moderate fat. So my fat, like I'm very particular about, I would prefer it to be like animal fat. Like if I eat fat, it's going to come from, beef tallow or bacon fat or whatever, coconut oil. Those are the fats that I mean, I will cook with olive oil.
Butter, yes or no?
Yes, but I don't have a problem with butter at all. I had butter the whole beginning of the keto journey. I wasn't even like one of those, like you have to eat all the Kerrygold, like just good butter, real butter. The only problem I have with butter is when I feel like dairy's starting to affect me. So I don't think, I'm not opposed to butter. I mean, I'm not going to eat a stick of butter, but if you want to add it on something, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the dairy side of it is where like I stay away from it.
Does dairy affect you negatively if there's too much in terms of actually losing weight and staying in ketosis, or is it about inflammation, or is it both?
Definitely inflammation. It's like, I can tell for sure it affects like hormones, my skin, and inflammation. So like I had gone completely dairy nut free for like a couple weeks. My body responded crazy. And actually, I mean, I hit my goal. My goal weight was 135, and then I cut out dairy and I dropped down to 127. And then I wasn't trying to lose any more weight, more or less just feel better. But like, I joked with my husband, I felt so sprightly. Like I just felt like so good. And just that when the inflammation is down and gone, it just affects so many other things in a good way. So the problem is I really love cheese.
Same. Yeah. That's something I think about because, I don't want to go too deep into my story because this is about you, but in my experience, I've tried different things. There are certain things that are very easy for me with keto. There are things that sometimes become a little more difficult. Mm-hmm. I definitely have had my moments of consuming large amounts of cheese. Yeah. If I'm not counting, if I'm not really paying attention, I'm just sticking to my, keto and, fats and proteins. That's all I'm thinking about. And when I have a certain amount of cheese over a certain amount of days, yeah,
Yeah.
You either notice no difference, meaning my goal is still to lose some weight and I don't think it's happening at all. I actually feel,
Hmm.
a little bit bloated. When you feel like you haven't ate well, like it's an instinct. It's something you have to, I think, get in tune with yourself. But for me, it's
Hmm.
always that I feel it. I feel like I'm a little bit bloated as if I overate, and I don't remember thinking that I did. But then when I look at the dairy, the cheese specifically, I'm like, yeah, I need to cut back on that this week. I
Yes.
can just feel it. I'm not testing anything. I'm not counting all the calories, although there are a lot of calories when you're doing anything with high fat.
Right.
It's one of those things that can be hard to overcome. So I guess finding that line of moderation
Hmm.
for you is important. Um, when you get to that goal weight, when you actually got a little bit under your goal weight, how did you tweak things around to keep yourself where you are? Because maintenance can be very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, once I hit my goal, it gave me like, I never really wanted to like eat not keto things, but it gave me the want to try some of the things that I never allowed myself to have. Like the carb balanced tortillas and some, the prepackaged like Quest bars and stuff like that. And I never gained any weight. I never put on any weight trying those things. So I'm glad that I did honestly didn't like most of them, the things that I tried, but they made me feel awful. Like
Mm,
I would eat the carb balanced tortilla and I'm like, that's the only thing different that I did. And I ate it. I didn't necessarily lose or gain weight, but I didn't feel very good after I ate it.
right.
I liked it, but I didn't really feel very good. And as far as like tweaking things, like I've had a lot of people say, like, are you going to increase your calories? Are you going to, do all these things now that you're in maintenance? And I just really just eat intuitively. I'm not very good at fasting. I want to for the health benefits of it. I just like to eat my food. I I eat 3 meals a day. I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And um I've lost 73 pounds doing it that way. And I feel like if my body wanted to lose more weight, I'm not going to eat less food. I'm not going to eat more food. I'm just going to eat what I'm hungry for and then just let my body respond the way that it wants to. And so if it
Yeah.
feels like it's got more weight to lose, that's fine. But I don't want to get like to a point where like I've lost so much weight, it's hard to maintain. So I don't want to do anything differently now than what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
What I hear here is someone who is very happy with the weight that they're at, who
Mhm.
feels very comfortable with the food that they eat, who's not stressing about what am I going to, do next? How am I going to make this work? You're not obsessing over it. But at some point, you probably felt that way, right? In the beginning of
Oh,
all this, even before the issue with the diabetes, you probably were always like, should I eat that? I don't think I should eat that. I don't know if I want that. I really want that. I'm craving this. I'm craving that.
mhm.
I don't think I should have it. And it's like the constant
Yes.
conversation you're having in your head all day long. It's exhausting. How amazing is it that you're not doing that anymore?
So good. It's so good. Yes. And I definitely did that. And I sometimes I'd have to apologize because I'd spend all day at home with my kids and my husband would come home and that's all we talk about is food and diet and food and tweaking this and doing that. And it's kind of nice to like not even think about it. And sometimes I do still think about things. And this, I don't know how to explain this, but keto has changed my life and it has honestly become a part of my identity. And it is something that I like to talk about and enjoy, but the obsession side of it is gone now, especially like now that it all worked. Like it worked. And it's very relaxing to just go about my day and not, like you said, have that constant turning in your brain of, is this okay? Is this going to affect me? Is this going to, one little slip up, I also felt for a while like, okay, I did go through that period where like, if I eat too much of this, am I going to gain all my weight back in one night? Like sometimes I felt that way.
It's a thing. It's a thing because you see how far you've come and you are
Mhm.
happy with that. And there's this other side of you that is in fear of it all going backwards because it
Yeah.
happens to many, many people.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if you ever lost weight and gained it all back,
Oh,
but
I
I've
have.
done it and plenty of people have done it. And that is always going to be in the back of your mind until you
Hmm.
feel like you have control. And it's a hard thing to control. We would think what's the easiest thing to control, one would think, is what you put into your mouth.
Yeah.
It's a
Yep.
decision you make. You ingest it. How hard is that? But there's
Right.
so many other things that go into that decision, where
Hmm.
from emotions to, what's
Yes.
going on with you mentally, to then the physical craving of food. And that is what so many people, I think, when we talk about obesity
Hmm.
and why are people obese, and when we realize it's not easy, when we accept that it's really not that easy, like
Yep.
there are answers, but it's not that easy to actually execute. It has a lot to do with all the stuff that I just mentioned that goes into the decision of what am I going to put in my mouth. It is not as simple as, how about you put down the potato chip and pick up a celery stick? That's not an easy decision. It has
No.
to be something that comes from within, about where you want to go and where do you see
Hmm.
yourself and where do you visualize. That's how success, I think, is made
Yep.
in
Hmm.
every aspect. And it's one thing to say, it's another thing to do it.
Hmm.
You've done it and you continue to do it. Tell me about your relationship in any way that it's changed in a positive way with your family of 10.
It's changed a lot. Um, and in a good way. And I mean, I never have really struggled a whole lot with like depression or anything like that. But when this all started, I was sad, and it affected my relationship with my kids. That if, my husband worked a lot, I missed him all the time. And it was very hard because, I don't want to spend all the time when he's home whining or complaining because I don't feel good or because I'm overweight. And um, I am the kind of person where it was, if I had to get dressed and leave the house, it was an issue. Like, and then, he would plan out these amazing dates and dinners and things for us to go do. And I'd sit at the end of our bed and cry because I only want to wear a hoodie because I want to cover myself up. And he's an amazing man. And he'd be like, all right, well, let's put on a hoodie and go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Like, that's fine. We don't got to go anywhere fancy. But it was sad. It made me feel sad because he wasn't getting what he needed, and he wasn't getting experiences that he wanted to experience because I was putting up a wall with that. And even with the other kids, my older kids, like my daughter, the one that got married, dress shopping should have been the most fun thing in the world to do for her wedding. And it just wasn't. And it was sad, and the sporting events with the kids, like I didn't really want to mingle with the other parents because I was ashamed of myself. And all of that is so different now. And it's nice to play with my kids more because they definitely have noticed the difference, the babies, and just spend more time and be happier. And now I absolutely want to put on a pretty dress and go out to dinner now. It's so much better. And like, it's nice when the conversation is just, you don't have anything left but positivity because all of the other stuff is gone,
Right.
that
Yeah,
weight's gone.
literally.
Yeah.
But I the something I'm thinking about right now is, you mentioned being sad
Mhm.
prior, and you painted a very vivid picture of what that looked like for you when you don't want to do things that other people around
Mhm.
you, loved ones, your husband, want to do because of your shame. And I wonder if, when you get to the place that you are, have you been able to separate shame and negativity from your appearance? Because it's part of it. I understand it. I'm the same way. I don't
Yeah.
sometimes want to see a certain angle. I don't want to see a picture of myself because I'm like, ooh, my gut's sticking out a little more than I like to think it is there. Like, why
Yeah.
does my face look so chubby? It's not that chubby. Oh, I was in a weird position and I see a little
Mhm.
double chin. I don't like that.
Mhm.
All those things, I think it plagues women and men the same. So I understand it
Mhm.
and I get why it just happens. It's a natural thing. But there's also another side of me that thinks about it from the perspective of, my goal should be to be healthy. Yes, I
Mhm.
want to look good. Can I separate the shame of maybe if I'm overweight and I don't look great? Can I separate that so that I can enjoy my life regardless of anything?
Right.
Assuming I'm not in pain. Have you ever thought about that before? Is that something that comes into your mind, or are you just like, nope, I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm happy.
No, I've definitely thought about that. I mean, I think one thing for me is there were like, it not even necessarily physical, maybe yes, obviously I had definitely attached a lot of that to like my weight, but for me, I think it's more or less like my attitude was bad because, I mean, truthfully, because I let my weight control me. And I'll my husband will tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, I am very vain when it comes to myself.
A lot of us are. I am too. Just so you know, this is
Yeah.
not like, I'm not putting a spotlight on you. This is a spotlight on a lot of us.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just me being honest. Like, I mean, I wake up in the morning and I don't really like to say stay at home mom. I'm a homemaker. This home is my life. It's my job. And I will get up every day. Sometimes I don't, once in a blue moon, and I will do my hair and I will do my makeup and I'll put on an outfit because I don't really care what anybody else thinks, but it makes me feel good. I don't want to walk by the mirror and see, you know, not that I feel like you need makeup to be pretty, but it makes me feel good. I can walk around with no makeup and I'm fine, but it makes me feel good. So I can separate as far as like, now maybe because my attitude's better, but back then I wasn't motivated to get up and pull myself together. Like I was more like, what's the point? So then I'd have a bad attitude.
Right.
You know,
Listen, there are so many days where even myself, I know so many people go through this. We wake up, we just want to stay in bed. Because
yes.
honestly, it's like facing the world is a task that I don't want to deal with right now.
Yeah.
And that can really lead to some depressive thoughts if you go
Yes.
and do that too far. Sometimes you literally got to pick yourself up and say, no, I got to do this.
Yes.
So I would only imagine that when you get to a point where you actually are excited to quote, look cute and like dress yourself up and make yourself
right.
and then tackle your day, that is empowering to some degree. That really is empowering because now you're excited to tackle the day versus dreading it.
Right. Absolutely. It definitely motivates me to get more done. And then like, you just got to get up and go. And then once you go, it just keeps going. Like you know what I mean? Like, and I always say, it's like when you give a mouse a cookie, like you get up and the first thing you do, no matter what, without fail, is make your bed. I get up, I make my bed, and then I have a little bit of coffee and I do things, and one thing leads to another and leads to another. And a lot of that has to do with putting clothes on or putting makeup on. And that's just for me. I'm not saying everybody needs to do that to feel good.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think that's the thing I'm noticing with you is you figured out a formula that works for you really, really well. And a lot of that is built into routines that you've built for yourself, because then it's like, you know what you're doing. You get up and you don't have to figure out all those little details. You know, you're going to get up, you're going to make your bed, you're going to do yourself up, you're going to make yourself feel good, and you're going to start doing the things that you need to get done. That's an important, empowering thing for all of us in any, whether it's you need to put on your makeup or someone else, it's something, you know, they need to take that morning walk, whatever it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of morning walks and exercise, is any of that a part of your journey so far?
It wasn't in the beginning. Like initially, like I said, there wasn't a lot of me time. So initially it was like, the only thing I could control was what I cooked and put in my mouth, you know? And then after I seen like a little bit of results and I seen a little bit of like, oh, my body's changing. Well, then it kind of motivated me. Like, I'm going to get up. And honestly, it started on a random day. Like we were all outside. My father-in-law came over to help my husband work on his car. And there was kids helping watch the little kids. And I hopped on my bike, and I live in the country. So when I say a block, I mean a country block, which is a big block. And I just was like, I'm going to go down to the end of the road. And then I went and I turned, and then I went, and then I got back to the house and got off the bike, and I almost fell because my legs were like noodles. Yeah. And I was like, they're all trying to talk to me. I was like, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I went and like sat on the couch. I was like, oh my gosh. But then like the next day I felt really good. So I did it again. And then, so when my husband would come home from work, I got faster too. It eventually only took me 20 minutes as fast as I could around the country block. And it became something I did all the time. And I loved it. So then my husband got me a stationary bike, which I have in the living room. And that's it. That's all I did when it comes to working out, like 20 minutes on the stationary bike or around the block. And that's it. Until recently, I've started to try to do more like ab exercises or arm exercises or yoga, but I've never been the kind of person that liked to work out. I was a dancer, I was a cheerleader, I was active, but I never like want to go to the gym. That's not something I would do, you know? Mm-hmm. But I do think moving your body is important. You lose all the weight, all that, and that's fine, but you got to move your body in some way, shape, or form, you know?
Well, even in this entire journey before the bike, you were always moving your body because you get up in the morning, you get things started, you're taking care of a home. It's not like you're let me clean up for an hour, and then you're sitting down and watching
Right.
TV and stuffing your face all day, which is something that we often need to be aware of. Like, how
Yes.
often are we sitting down and maybe it's television or maybe we're doing work? Are we also mindlessly just consuming food? Those things are very important regardless of
Yes.
your diet. I notice that with myself all the time. I purposely keep myself away from the kitchen or the dining area when I work on anything.
Yeah.
Because if I work in the dining area, it's, oh, well, I can also have something here to snack on. I can have this. So I have to always keep those separate. So, Brooke, before I let you go, I want to ask you some questions. We call them the Big Fat Five questions. It's a fun
Okay.
little way to wrap this up. All right. Easy
Hmm.
question off the top. What's your favorite food?
Chicken wings.
Chicken wings. Do you do them in
Chicken wings.
an air fryer? Do you do them? How do you do them?
Beef tallow. We fry them in beef tallow
On a pan?
in the deep fryer.
Oh, in a deep fryer, straight up.
Yep.
Beef tallow. And do you put any seasoning on it? I love wings. I have to ask for myself here.
Yeah. I like the Buffalo Wild Wing sauces, or we make our own. We make our own sauces sometimes. The Parmesan, spicier the better. We love them. And I think a lot of people have said that to me, like, how do you eat so many chicken wings? I eat a lot of chicken wings, and I've
Right.
eaten a lot of chicken wings through this entire journey and lost 73 pounds, because that's one thing I can't do without is chicken wings.
That's impressive. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I love chicken wings too. Sometimes when I have done chicken wings in the past, I'll eat the entire package of chicken wings that I just bought to cook, and I'm like, did I just overdo it with the chicken wings? But
That's a,
if I'm overdoing it with chicken wings, I'm gonna cut back somewhere else because
yeah,
they're
that's what I
amazing.
do. If I know I'm having chicken wings, I definitely go light earlier in the day.
Right. Gotcha. Favorite activity? So I mean, it might be bike, but it might be something else that you like to do.
Listening to music.
Oh, do you have any music that's always like your go-to?
Yeah, folk music.
All right. Any
Mhm.
band in particular that we can go check out?
Yeah, Ray LaMontagne is definitely my favorite.
Oh, that's great.
We like Mandolin Orange and Gregory Alan Isaacoff. Those are like our current
Cool.
jams.
Always, I think people are always looking for different recommendations, or you reminded me now of Ray LaMontagne. That I'm like, I haven't listened to that in a while. So
So
very good
good.
call. Whenever you have moments of stress, and a lot of us go through that, where moments of stress could be really defeating sometimes,
Mhm.
because in that, like, what do we do? And then we feel like we should give up on something. I don't know if you go through that often, but whenever you have stressful moments, what do you do to get out of it?
Pray.
Folded hands, pray to God, stop what you're
Yep.
doing.
Yep.
It's a great trick. I don't mean to call it a trick, but it's a great thing to do, because
Mhm.
in anything, whether you're a prayerful person or not, stopping
Mhm.
in the moment, I think, is a great way to sort of collect yourself and then move forward in a
Yeah.
positive way. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And music's definitely a stress reliever too. Because I mean, I pray, I listen to worship music, but my husband knows too. If the kids are getting out of control and everything's crazy, sometimes it's just something as simple as, in that moment, change the song or put something a little calmer on. And, music is a big stress reliever in this family for all of us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and finding that right song to fit the mood or bring it down a little bit. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you're a DJ in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what's the mood right now? Do you have a good piece of advice, either that you like to think about or someone has given you, that you can share with us?
I think the only thing at this point in my life that I could say, if I were to give anyone any kind of piece of advice, is to just, at any cost, do whatever you got to do to be true to yourself. We're in a world now where everybody wants to be like everybody else. We want to emulate other people and their life and their lifestyle. And I did that for a long time. I was obsessed with celebrities for a very long time. And once I kind of like dialed it into myself and just, I don't care what anybody thinks. And anybody that knows me will know I'm a very like bullheaded, stubborn person. And sometimes that can be difficult, because it's like, well, you don't do this, or you can't do this. And then it'll manipulate the way I look or think about a situation. But when I zone into myself and my family, and I do what is right and true and best for me and my husband and my kids, I am a much happier person. Just not trying to be like other people is such a release.
Yeah. And I got to mention, since you brought up music and now you just said your advice, be true to yourself. When I met my wife, And I was talking about music. I'm much more into music than she is, but every now and then she just like pops one out, like, you know what song I like? And I'm like, what is this song? I've never heard of it. And
Uh-huh.
there's a song by Ziggy Marley. And I never would have thought in a million years that she listened to Ziggy Marley, but she loved
Uh-huh.
this one song called Gotta Be True to Yourself. And she always loves that song. Every now and then she'll just put it on. So that's a song, if anyone hasn't heard, kind of plays into that feeling and that mood. And
Hmm.
it is important. It's very easy to lose ourselves
It is.
in this
Hmm.
journey and in plenty other journeys where we just get lost in the stress in the moment and things that are going on around us. It gets very noisy. But
Hmm.
yeah, coming back to that center and being true to what you feel, what you need, I think is very important. What
Hmm.
are some of your goals moving forward?
Um, Man, I don't know. I mean, for me, I think to continue on what I'm doing now, I'm a day-to-day person for the most part. I mean, like obviously we plan family for the future, but I'm definitely a day-to-day person. Um, I just want to continue to be healthy, eat healthy. I want to be an example to my children, to their friends, to anybody who thinks like, I've had all these babies, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm overweight and in sweatpants. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, you literally can cultivate your own fairy tale by just being true to yourself, but follow your dreams, eat healthy, be healthy. And I mean, I mean, my past wasn't always the greatest. And just this little journey to me, like, I feel like a queen sometimes. I live in the country in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm barefoot 90% of the time, but I honestly feel like we have created a fairy tale living here. And like, there's just so much joy in taking care of yourself. There's so much more. I mean, it's so much more than weight loss. You know, this is so much more than weight loss. And I want to inspire other people to find their joy, health, weight loss, mothering, being a wife, whatever it may be. I just want other people to be as happy as I am.
I mean, you want to inspire people when you say things like you can cultivate your own fairy tale by being true to yourself. I don't know if there's anything more inspiring than that. And for people, I really love that. And for people out there who are borderline diabetic, pre-diabetic, just diagnosed with a type 2 diabetes that's reversible, this can be very inspiring. I think that understanding that food can really heal
Hmm.
is a good thing to take with them moving forward, because in many cases, whether it's diabetes or something else, using food to heal is one of the best things you can do for yourself. If you
Yeah.
can just
Hmm.
find the right formula, you found the right formula. You share a lot of your story and your recipes and other things that are going on Instagram. You want to share that with us right now?
My handle?
Yes.
Yeah, my handle on Instagram is Bishop Party of 10 Keto.
Bishop Party of 10, which the first time I saw that, we hadn't met, right? What did I think?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way that she's a family of 10. Like, I don't know what that party of 10 means. No, it is. Eight
Yeah.
children, one great, fantastic husband, 10 of you
Yes.
all together.
Yes.
Brooke Bishop, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It was really great.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.